Welcome to the latest podcast of Cern Station. This is Pat LaRusso. I have with me tonight Blair Barton and Anthony Sino. Welcome, gentlemen. How's the week started off for you both?
Awesome. Yeah, quick turnaround on Leaf games makes me happy.
Most
Yeah,
definitely. And Anthony, how about yourself?
it's been good so far. Hockey's back, which I am loving. Like everything about the hockey season is amazing to me. You got fantasy sports, you got gambling if you want to, and I just love the game watching it. Right, I was watching Islanders in Boston just before we record this, and I'm like, man, I'm just glad that hockey's back. Something on
No,
TV.
most definitely. And Anthony, you just released a very good blog, and you kind of looked at the first three games for the Maple Leafs. For our listeners that haven't had the opportunity to read it, do you want to maybe share some of the key points?
Yeah, sure. So essentially, I took the approach uh, over these three games and just kind of look, okay, what's working so far, what can be improved upon, and what's like, wow, this is a glaring issue that is preventing this team from reaching its full potential. And I called it the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I kind of broke the team down in kind of those three tiers, and obviously with the preface that it's very early, right, guys? There are only three games in, but I also said at the same time you got to try and find that balance of yes, it is early. They wouldn't even be halfway through their preseason right now in a normal circumstance, but they're now three games into a 56 game season, and in a couple weeks they're going to be over 20% done the season. And if they start sliding or they can start picking up a few wins in a row here, you can really set yourself up for the rest of the season, either positively or negatively. So it's just kind of finding that balance as an outsider from the organization to just kind of make sense of what the numbers are telling us right now, what the eye test is telling us right now, and then we can extrapolate from there. Yeah, that's basically it. We can go into some of the good, the bad, and the ugly specifically, but do you guys have something specific that you want to talk about right away? Do you want to talk about the bad? Do you want to talk about the good? Do you want to talk about the ugly first? What do you choose?
I think it's funny because when I think of Frederik Andersen, you could easily slot him in all three. I thought he made some really big saves that essentially allowed them to win the game against Montreal in overtime. But then we're starting to see those same issues with Freddie where he allows those ill-timed goals. Like the one Josh Anderson one where it kind of trickled through him. Or, there's been some other goals that, a really high tier goalie would make the save. And I think, it's been brought up so many times, and Anthony, you and I have discussed this on and offline, is I would like to see him become like a Grant Fuhr, where, yeah, Grant maybe let up 4 goals in one night or maybe 5 goals in a night. But
Perfect example.
He'll make that big save. It sparks the team. Like when I looked at the game in Montreal, they were down 3-1. They tied the game. They come back from the third, and bang, there's a goal. Like it's the timeliness of some of his goals that he's letting in that it's concerning for me, and it's concerning for me that we're getting October Freddie in January when we were told this entire preseason that he was going to look at fixing those dynamics and having a big strong start to the year.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, Pat, and obviously it has been ugly looking at Freddie, and I got a few thoughts on how this could work out. I mean, I don't see Freddie as like a Grant Fuhr type of goalie. Like to me, he should be in more of the elk of like a Eddie the Eagle. Like he's a big sound position goalie who's just not stopping the big plays, and that's what's really killing him. Obviously Eddie was known for making those big saves, and he just seems to let those holes in that seem to
Yeah.
squeak by him. And and Pat, I know we chatted briefly a little bit earlier. like for me, there could be a benefit to this being a shortened season, and the fact that we are getting October Freddie in January is that he's a notorious slow starter. Every year he's been a Maple Leaf, he's been slow. I don't recall what he was like in Anaheim, but if he can get hot in this 56 game season right in time for the playoffs, and he doesn't hit that slouch that he hits in the playoffs, he could get hot and he could take us on a run. And that's, typically it isn't the best team that wins the Stanley Cup. It's a team that's playing the best. I mean, obviously Tampa, proved that wrong last year. They were the best team. They are the best team in the league, and they won the cup. But a lot of things have to go your way, and if we can count on Freddie to get to be that all-star level goalie towards the end of the season into the playoffs, that could definitely be in our favor if we're able to get some defense.
But Blair, absolutely. And now that you say it, it's starting to make me think about what you just said about how the best team doesn't always win. It's usually the team that's playing the best. Mm-hmm. This is a perfect example of the main message that I try to get across in my article here, is that it's a lot of this team's problems is recognizing the moment. And that same problem hurt Tampa in the year that they went when they set the points record 2 years ago when they got swept by Columbus, right? So that team, to me, it was so utterly dominant throughout the entire regular season that when they got there, right? And remember, they were up early that first game in Columbus, and you're like, holy shit, it's a sweep. It like
was
they
were
were
4-0. I
think it was 3 or 4-0, right?
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is gonna be a quick one.
And then I was like, unbelievable. All right, it's over. I vividly remember. I don't even know if I would have texted in our group chat at the time, but I said Tampa in 3 instead of 4, like just to joke how much of a blow it was gonna be. And they came back that game, Columbus, and it just shocked that team to its core. Yeah. And the next game was their chance to be like, guys, we gave them one. Come back and take back this series. They didn't do it. The next year they come back in the bubble, and then they're in that 5 overtime game with who? Was it Columbus again? Yeah, I believe it was in the first round. Right, where Braden Point scored that 5 overtime goal. Tampa dominated that game again, and I believe it was Korpisalo who was stopping everything. He had like 95 shots against or something. It was stupid. And they persevered and they just kept going. And at any point they could have easily just folded and been like, wow, this is impossible. And I guarantee you, if they lose that 5 overtime game, they don't go on to win the cup. So I guess my long-winded way of saying this is that it's the maturity of the group and the recognizing of the moment that can take a team to the next level, where on Friday in the second game of the season against a team that has their home opener, very young team, you're down, you gave up a lead. And in the second period, I believe Ottawa controlled like 97, I think it was something stupid, like 90% of the expected goals. Like you don't have a pushback, you just roll over and take it.
Yeah,
that was a little disheartening. That was
Didn't they only have like 5 shots or 7 shots in the second period on Friday night? It was like so ridiculous. Yeah, like it wasn't. It wasn't the best result.
Sorry, Anthony. Sorry to that point that you're saying about the resolve that Tampa gained from when they set the point record to their humiliating loss to bouncing back and winning the Stanley Cup. That just reminds me a lot of the Babcock-isms that he would say, and I'm actually a fan of Mike Babcock, and he would say these teams, they take their lumps. There's lots of learning to do by losing, right? As much as he hated to lose and he didn't want to lose and he hated the process of losing, he knew that this team had to get it handed to them a few times before they're going to take the next step. And Tampa did it. Washington was like that for years. San Jose went to a couple cup finals, but never crossed the finish line. But
St. Louis had
St. Louis did the same
heartbreaks.
Yeah, St. Louis was like, didn't they set a record for like 21 straight years in the playoffs, St. Louis? or something like that.
I think
Maybe
Detroit
more.
holds that record, but they did go for they went on a long run. I remember I think
Yeah.
St. Louis, they went to the conference final maybe 2 or 3 years just before they won the cup. Like they
Yeah.
had their runs.
You need some time, to get it together. And I think that this young team has had enough experience of losing and to see what it takes to win. And if they don't show resolve this year, there's an issue with the core. This has been straight years of we should have won that series. Like those series against Boston,
Yeah.
had a chance to close it out. They didn't, and they lost. They lost games they should have been able to close out, and hopefully, that's what Tampa learned, and hopefully that's what the Leafs won.
Yeah, exactly, Blair. And you see that I think back to that game 6, right? They win game 5. They had 2 leads in that series, 2-1 and 3-2 in that very last Boston series, and they just fall flat in game would have been 4, and they fall flat in game 6. Both games at home, I believe, right? Because and I think that, to me, I chalk that up to, like, you know what, the electricity in this city in that game 6, that Easter weekend, was insane, absolutely insane. And I can see, and just, you think of yourself, like, as a fan, you get all wound up about the game. As a player, it's impossible to not think about, man, like, just imagine if we won. And that clouds your performance, I think, in a way.
Yeah, because you get ahead of yourself.
Yeah, once you get to the game, right?
Yeah.
So it's only natural. But I think with maturity, it will come. It's just a matter of, like, how patient can we be? And that goes back into the performance of this team. We'll bring it back to their recent performance here, because we're kind of hashing out the past. But
yeah,
I think there's all these little moments that you say, okay, we have to, on one hand, we have to realize that the best player on this team is 23 years old, right? And the second best player on this team is 23 years old. And the third or fourth best forward on this team, Nylander, like those, the big three are under 25, right?
Yeah.
It's just, now we're thinking of, like, okay, yes, the contracts are good because we're paying them for our prime years, but now it's like, okay, they're getting paid no game off money. We can't afford to have, because of the circumstances, the rest of our roster is filled out with, if everything goes right for this guy, he can be this. If everything goes right for this guy, he can be that. There's no Charlie Coyle on this Toronto Maple Leafs team that can play a third line center where he can give you 40 points on a bad day, on a bad season, right? So with that being said, this team needs to start taking the leadership under the big four. And I think we saw that on Saturday night with a bounce back. It's just, for me, it's got to be a little bit more consistent. I'm looking for that consistency. That Friday game really didn't sit well with me.
No, it didn't.
And I know we're only 3 games in, guys, but it's just, there can't be any nights off. And again, it's unrealistic to expect them to win every night, but it's just a matter of not rolling over when the chips get, like, when the going gets tough.
And that actually brings me to my final tweet from Friday night is I was anticipating them winning 56 straight games, but sometimes it speaks to the character of a team when it depends on how you lose the game. And I thought Friday there wasn't enough of a pushback. I was happy to see the bounce back. And it actually takes us to the next point of your blog, Anthony, and it's the things that went well. And if there was one thing, we all discussed about the importance of a Joe Thornton, but I thought the team really found what I like to say a third or fourth gear after Joe scored his first as a Leaf. Like, you just saw the energy level go through the roof on that bench.
The bench is buzzing.
And it snowballed. So, we're 3 games in and Thornton's already, had that impact. I would like to see, what that means for tonight's game against the Winnipeg Jets. But I thought seeing that kind of gave me a glimmer of hope that, this is what we're paying Joe Thornton to do. and he's already delivered in spades, even if it's just a game against the Ottawa Senators.
Yes, exactly, Pat. And I think right now we're recording this before the game against Winnipeg, but the fact of the matter is this: Winnipeg can be had tonight. No Line. I think they're battling a few other injuries. I think DeMello and
DeMello's gone.
DeMello's out tonight. Pullman's out. And it's just I'm not the biggest fan of this Winnipeg defense. Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, William Nylander, get after it. And I was listening
What
to
a
another
change in 2 years. Remember,
Exactly.
Winnipeg's defense was like the formidable D in the West. Like it was,
true.
you know,
They had the best
and it
top
just-
four in the country.
Yeah.
Trouba, Morrissey,
Tyler Myers.
Tyler Myers, Bufflin.
Yeah.
Buff, big buff.
Yeah, big buff.
I want to touch on one of the bad parts here that you have in your article as well, and I can't agree with you more. And it is TJ Brodie. He looks like he's swimming out there, and you know I've watched him play for years. I think he's great. There's definitely something, you know, some adjustment that he's going to make. I know he's playing a different conference. I know he's been playing with Giordano for the last decade, but come on. I'd be interested to hear what you think on that, Pat. Or, sorry.
I think for me, because of the abbreviated camp, I'm willing to give the new guys a little bit longer of a leash, only because they're coming into a brand new system. The defense as a whole has been completely revamped. Like, what, 3 of them are new, 3 of them are incumbent. You know what I mean? And that bottom 2, especially with Dermott, Bogosian, you know, we're going to get our first look at Mikko Lehtinen. I'm willing to give the defense a little bit of a longer leash, where I may not give it with a Freddie or with some of the guys that, you know, because I thought that Tavares and Nylander didn't have that good of a night. I think it was the first night against Ottawa. I thought the forwards just all looked really bad.
Not
but with Brodie,
enough chances.
Right? So I'm willing to give Brodie, you know, I think what the version of Brodie that we're going to get, say, at Game 10 or even Game 15, once they're able to institute the systems, I think is different. But he's essentially being tossed to the Wolves, and he's learning on the fly. So it hasn't been the best, but I thought he had a really good game Saturday, you know, against Ottawa. So, you know, maybe this is the turning point for a lot of these guys, and, you know, that's what we can hope for. And Anthony, you're right. You know, Winnipeg is up for the taking. It's now up to this team to kind of build on what they started on Saturday.
Yes. And to speak, and just to follow up on this Brodie point, guys, is like, I really do think that the fit's there. I reiterated in my blog. I think the fit's there with Riley. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that Brodie is a good skater. And the problem with Morgan's partners in the past was that if you really study the video on how teams would forecheck the Leafs and why Morgan's defense numbers can look so terrible, is that teams, for those that don't understand, when you a cross ice dump is if you're coming down Morgan Riley's left side, which is the right side for the opponent, they're making sure that the puck is being chipped into the opposite side to force Riley's partner, who in the past, like we talked about the last podcast, the glorious names that I'm not even going to repeat again, but those guys are now forced to pivot, skate back, and retrieve pucks. All his partners sucked at it. They really did, right? What the Leafs have tried to do in the past is put Morgan with a partner that is good at breaking up the cycle. So because that's where Morgan struggles. When the puck's finally in the D zone, he's not very good at getting the puck back. What you have to do with a partner with Morgan is making sure that when they are entering your zone, that it can get out quickly. TJ is really good at that. I think it's going to take some time for, and that's all communication, which is what follows up with Pat's point, is that I think when they get to that point where it's just habitual, you're going to see that pair succeed, right? And I think that is so huge for this team. If they can, like the Muzzin Hall pairing is working right now. Again, it's early, but if those two can get it together, it would be such a huge step for that team.
Yeah, I'm not writing TJ Brodie off. I think you know, super happy with the signing. I think he's a great player, great skater, great first pass. He's actually pretty similar. I know a lot of people are going to like me saying this, but he's not that far off from Jake Gardner.
He is not. He is
type of
not.
player.
No.
And he can play the right sides. He's like Pat said, the 10 game kind of window, usually it's 20 games to see how a team gels. Well, you got 10 this year max
Yeah.
to get it together,
Yeah.
or you're going to get buried. Interested to see how it plays out, but I mean, more than anyone, he stood out to me over the course of the first at least 2 games.
Yeah,
In a
on the
negative
defense,
way.
I would say he's probably the most important player that had the worst 3 games.
Yeah.
And then by consequence, I would say Riley has not been that good, which is really unfortunate because I have a lot of faith in him. I think he's a huge bounce back candidate. But
Yeah.
I guess the last thing that we can maybe get into before we kind of wrap it up here, Pat, is
Yep.
I guess I was gonna go back into the goaltending and see what you guys thought of Jack Campbell, but we'll save that for another time to give since goalies are kind of voodoo, we'll give them another few games before we go back into that. But that fourth line and the Robertson injury, it's just a heartbreaking thing for that kid, eh? Like he in that 3 minutes that he was in there, I was like, wow, what a rejuvenated line. And then that unfortunate injury.
Well, I heard it's only 4 weeks, right? So that's it's not as bad as we thought.
But 4 weeks in a
sure.
condensed schedule, that's got to be pretty close to 20 games, no?
I would
15 to
20. It's 15 to 20, I think.
15 to 20.
I'd like to see him. I'd like to see him get some shift with Matthews and Marner when he gets back. When they spell Joe off the line, who's playing great, by the way.
I've been saying that since the start of camp. I said VC can come down. My ideal lineup, guys, is like if that Thornton line can still work with Matthews and Marner, keep it. And then you probably go Robertson, Tavares, Nylander, because VC's just been kind of a passenger on that line. I think if you add Robertson, it just would add a different element and make our top 6 like that much more dangerous. Because ultimately, right, guys, this Leafs team, the core of this Leafs team success is we have 2 lines that are like first lines. And you're not going to stop either one. You're not going to stop both of them on any given night, right? So if that's not the case, if one of those lines isn't always chugging, then the Leafs are in trouble, right? So
yeah,
Nylander and Tavares need to step up from the weekend. I thought they were they were really good against Montreal, but I think that now once Robertson comes back, you take VC off that line. I'm really liking this third line. I think they're going to have time to gel, but they are very energetic and they're going to chew up ice, which I like. And then you're going to have a fourth line probably with Spezza, Simmons, and we'll see how like whoever fills in there. Maybe it's Barabanov, Engvall. Who else is there? They got Adam Brooks or Travis Boyd. Like I think the fourth line isn't as important, obviously, but that Robertson joining the lineup would be such a huge element.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see Lettman tonight. Sorry, I just want to get that in there before we finish up. I'm looking forward to watching him play. He's an exciting player.
Bobby or Lettman, they call him.
Yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see how the rookie pans out, because I really do like the option that he can bring. Just by watching some of the clips from his play in Europe, he can be that hybrid. Like he's not going to make the huge hit, but he's very smart defensively. So it'd be interesting what that pairing of him and Bogosian would look like, over in the next couple of games. I think, that was going to be for me a pairing that I was going to keep my eye out on, because I thought for a bottom 2 that would be great. When you start looking at some
power play. Sorry to interrupt. Right, we'll probably see him on the power play tonight.
And it's another good look. He does have a solid point shot. Like if you look at some of his video from Europe, it's a shot off the point. There's a tip in front of the net, or it goes right in. Like, he has a very hard controlled shot. Unlike, back in the day with Phaneuf, who would always, throw it over the net. At least this guy can, he has some pretty good aim. So, if you're one of those big centers or big buys that are in front of the net, look out for a tip opportunity there. So
that's so important, right, on the point.
Yeah.
Because it is my biggest pet peeve when a defenseman their shots constantly get blocked from the point, because like I know it might seem like, oh wow, like, oh, there's so much traffic in front, it's so hard to get it to the net. Well, like, work on it. Like, it's work on your edges and work on your shifts to roll off a forechecker or a shot blocker and find a way to get it to the net, guys. Like, it's all traffic. And that, just to finish off on this, is that I didn't want to go into the yearly statistics of how this Leafs team's offense has changed, but a lot of the shots that the Leafs are taking now are coming from outside the house, in terms of like outside the slot, let's say. So I think if that's the way that Sheldon Keefe wants to try things in the offensive zone, the shots got to get through from outside the slot.
Yeah.
And you need to get traffic. So if they're not generating as much in tight, and if they're going to play from outside the dots and outside the slot, then it's all about traffic, and it's all about finding those outlet passes on the half wall and then going east-west. Well, that matters for a defenseman, right? If you're not getting your shots through, then there's no traffic, right? It's blocked, and then you're going the other way and you're tracking back. So I really am interested to see how Lettinen does, and if he does do well, I'm interested to see if they do go back to 12 forwards and 60, which defenseman comes out.
Yeah.
Right?
So, you know what, to wrap up this podcast, and, you know, seeing that we're only minutes away from by the time we end this recording, I like to get your predictions on tonight's final score. So, Blair, I guess we'll start with you to close up the podcast. What do you have as the score for the Jets-Leafs game this evening?
Well, is Hellebuyck starting tonight?
I believe so.
Oh. I'm gonna say, you know, 2-1 Toronto. I say Freddie, you know, lets in a goal that was unstoppable. He stands on his head, and you know, a big mishap on Winnipeg's part that led to Hellebuyck actually giving up 2.
Excellent. And Anthony, I guess, you know, we'll throw it to you, and then we'll wrap up the podcast.
I will go 5-2 Leafs. I think.
Wow, you're going big.
I think the offense is coming tonight. I think Hellebuyck's going to have to face a lot of shots tonight. Winnipeg's only played one game, so they do have some fresh legs, but that could also mean they're rusty. Like, I'm pretty sure their facility was closed on Saturday, guys, due to COVID protocols. So who knows what's going to happen, right? So let's hope the Leafs can catch them sleeping, and they just got to be ready. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a big offensive night.
Yeah, I'm going to go.
TJ Brodie, a goal and 3 assists.
I got Matthews for 2 goals. Matthews is due, guys.
Matthews is due for a breakout.
Yeah.
He hasn't. You know, I'm going to, only because I don't trust Freddie just yet, and I think I like where Anthony was going with the breakout of offense. I'm going to go 4-3 Leafs. I think Winnipeg, even without Laine, still has some firepower. And I think the Leafs will be able to take advantage of a weakened Jets defense. So I'm going to go 4-3 Toronto. So thanks everyone for listening. We've had some fun. Look out for our next podcast next Tuesday. Also be on the lookout for our brand new website, which should launch in February. Thanks very much, guys, and we'll do this again shortly.
Take care, guys.
Let's go.
Go Leafs. Go Leafs.